So the MCU is expanding their magical corner with Agatha all along. And I think they're doing a great job so far. It's definitely different than anything we've seen in the MCU. And it feels very distant and separate, but I think in a good way. I think Jac Schaeffer, who wrote this show, wrote WandaVision, very much has a clear idea for what she wants out of her Marvel, career. And I think that is to make shows that appeal to her, and that appeal to a different demographic that normally would not be into the MCU, that would not be interested in it. But she's adding a lot of elements that a lot of fun, a lot of flair, and I think she's kind of killing it so far. The first two episodes of Agatha All Along were released earlier in this week, and I had a really good time with them. I love that they're keeping on the theme of being inspired by different genres of TV. The first episode's inspired by those True Detective, kind of Mayor of Easttown, True Detective, Night Country vibes, which I think really works for the show. I am very curious as to what the overall theme is going to be with this series. With WandaVision, it was those sitcoms throughout the decades. I'm still trying to understand what that recurring theme would be for this show, but I'm very excited to find out. I love the journey that they're set up on. I am so ready to go down the witch's road with this cast, with this coven. But I am a little bit worried about this show just because it is, let's just say that in the past, genre content has gotten a lot of hate when it is not male-led. And I that's very disappointing, but I am also worried that some of that toxicity will spread over this show. So far, I haven't seen it, which is amazing, and very surprising, the fact that it's mostly a woman, all-female cast. The one guy they have on there is gay. There's LGBT representation clearly throughout the Coven, which I love to see. And I honestly, that scares me a lot, with how they're going to be, with how the wider audience is going to be receptive of this show. I think that this could be a show that, finally breaks through to the mainstream, whereas a lot of LGBTQ women-led content has often been considered niche in the industry. I think that this could be a potential to break through, and kind of lead to more representation, more projects, which is very exciting, but also extremely scary. But anyway, speaking of scary, this show is coming out for spooky season, which I think is perfect timing. They could not have planned it out better. They very much put thought into how they were going to release the episodes, with it ending on the night before Halloween, which is just perfect timing. And yeah, I'm very excited for this season, for this Halloween season, to be all about Agatha all along for me. It's a really fun show. I think that, like I mentioned, we are getting fed the first two episodes just when I thought they were going to cut short, as other Disney Plus episodes have kind of left you wanting more. The episodes kept going, and I really felt like we were getting a lot of information. We were really moving somewhere, and the mystery behind the show, or within the show, is very compelling. Not to give too much away just yet, because we are going to go into a little bit more details of the episodes. But the first episode is very much, there's someone who's been murdered, and Agatha's trying to figure out what. And now, while we know who it is that got killed, it was obviously the Scarlet Witch who was killed in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. She doesn't know that, and she also doesn't know who she is. So she's kind of discovering and catching up with where we as an audience are. And it's a very intriguing journey. It's a very interesting way for those who have not caught up with WandaVision, with Wanda's story, to kind of catch up. And I think that's partially the reason why they did it. But it also allows you to understand more about Kathryn Hahn's Agatha, and kind of what she thinks, because all of the scenarios are happening in her head. So it really gives you insight into who she thinks she is. She is a down on her luck cop. She sees her, it's not confirmed yet, but it's basically confirmed that Aubrey Plaza is playing her ex. And so she sees her as very successful. And, Agatha deep down is very, scared to be alone, needs other people, but doesn't really want to reach out. Is, again, trying to seek that power for herself. And I think that that's a very interesting journey for her to go on, and Kathryn Hahn plays her to a T. Once she regains her consciousness, her free will, so to speak, she really comes into her own, and she's even more sassy and funny and so hot. Like, I mean, Kathryn Hahn she's a beautiful person, but she has never looked this good. She has never been this, like, Agatha is her character, and I truly, no one else could play her. Every once in a while you see an actor create a character that becomes so iconic, and I think this is it for her. Not to say that, like, she's done so many great roles, both comedic, both dramatic, and now she gets to kind of blend all of the talents that she has, and give them to a wider audience, which I think is just what I love so much about her role in WandaVision, and now it's even like 10 times more, which is really interesting to see. Aubrey Plaza also plays a big part in the first 2 episodes, and again, Aubrey Plaza is just so charismatic and magnetic and witchy, and I'm really excited to see where her character goes. We are just introduced to her. Clearly her and Agatha have a past. We don't know what that past is. We can only imagine, and I think that leaving things to the imagination is something that works well for this series, because there's a lot of unanswered questions, or things that aren't made abundantly clear, and that makes us have conversations where we're wondering how this all connects to the larger story, which is something that I happened in WandaVision. Now in WandaVision we were led astray, Raph Boner, but I'm hoping that this isn't the case here. For example, Joe Locke, also in the show, he comes from Heartstoppers, and he does a great job playing a very different character than his character in Heartstoppers. Here, his American accent is so good. I actually forgot he was British for a second, but he is just lovely, LGBT representation that we so desperately need, especially in mainstream content, and I think he's doing a great job. I'm like 95% sure that he's playing Billy Kaplan. That being said, the fact that we have not gotten confirmation, even though it's like should be obvious, is kind of scares me again with that Ralph Boner thing where he was supposed to be Quicksilver, ended up not being. So that scares me. I'm hoping that the backlash to that red herring is gonna, hopefully not lead us astray this time. I will say the longer they don't reveal who he is, the less certain I am about who he is, which is maybe the intent of this show, because they're like, we want to make you second guess yourself, even though you're right, which would be amazing. I think I would love if that were true, because I don't think any other answer besides him being Billy Kaplan, or Wanda Maximoff's son, Wiccan, I don't think any other answer will make us satisfied, and so I'm hoping that they take that to heart and don't fully lead us astray, because he's also doing a great job, and I could totally see him as a character. I could totally see him evolving the role. I'm a big fan of Wiccan Hoagling in the comic books, and so I think he is a great person to portray that, and so I'm hoping they don't lead us astray. But yeah, his character is so fun. It has a couple of quips in the first episode, but in the second episode he's really much Agatha Harkness stan. He knows all about her. You don't get to know a lot of his history, because every time he talks, he kind of like Agatha can't quite hear him, and so it makes you, that part of his character is interesting, that mystery element, because while I'm hoping he's Billy Kaplan, I want to know why Agatha can't hear him when he says his name, hear any of his backstory. Like, what is keeping him hidden from her? Is it Wanda, who somehow kept her children hidden from her, or is it something to do with Agatha's own son, Nicholas Scratch, who we see reference to in the first episode? And also there's like this one quick line where one of the other witches she's recruiting says, "Oh, is this for another child sacrifice?" Which is supposed to be as a joke, but the more I think about it, I'm like, is that what happened to Nicholas Scratch? And it's just, the show drops these little crumbs for us. Some of them could mean something, some of them could just be us fishing for things, but I think either way it makes it exciting. It makes it a great conversation to have. Now, in the second episode, we get to meet the Coven. So I think one of the interesting pieces of lore that we learned is that the coven that a witch needs is always within, I believe it was like a 3 mile radius or really close by. And I think that while it could be like a convenient little plot thing, I don't think so. I think it's such a good message of saying that that female friendship that you need, that you're looking for, is always nearby. You just have to be willing to look for it, be willing to put yourself out there, and find your own coven, which I think is a very powerful message. And the fact that it's done so in a way that's not really overt. And this show is very brilliantly written. More so than it has any right to be. There's so many layers to it where on the surface you're just watching a fun MCU side trip, kind of going through this witchy world of the MCU. But once you unearth it, you're like, why are we learning about this? And there's just so much important messages, like finding connection, also tying together the history of witches with the history of women, how as much as things have changed, they have also stayed the same in a lot of ways. I think that's really interesting. But yeah, getting back to the coven, we first meet Patti Lupone. She's the divination witch, and she is not phoning it in at all. I've seen a lot of her interviews, especially with Aubrey Plaza, and while she may not know what's going on in the MCU, you cannot tell it from watching her, because she's very much taking this role very seriously. She has fun elements. She's called pitchy when they do the Witch's Road song, which is hilarious because who would ever call Patti Lupone pitchy? But yeah, I think her character is just introduced. She's the one who kind of gives Agatha the list of the other witches for this coven, and that kind of sets her on a trip where we then meet Sasheer Zamata, who plays a potions witch, and the way that they are all kind of convinced to join the coven is very fun. They kind of don't have any other options. And they're all kind of, this is their last resort. The Witch's Road is the last resort for them to get what they want. Sasheer Zamata is a potions witch who we learn is bound, which means she can't access her magical powers even though she has them. So then she's like kind of now this like skincare, like wellness, has a bunch of like candles and skincare and all that stuff, some of which has resulted in her getting lawsuits that she can't quite get out of. So maybe the Witch's Road will help, and so she reluctantly agrees. And I love her look. I think she again fits into this world so great, and I'm very excited. Very small dose of her in the second episodes, but again, it was just an introduction. I'm very excited to see where her character goes. Same thing for Ali On, who plays I believe they call like the security witch or something, protection witch, and her kind of connection to the Witch's Road is sprinkled a little bit in that second episode. Her mom was actually, I believe, the one who wrote the song for the Witch's Road that they sing to access it. And so she clearly has a deep connection to the Witch's Road, and I'm excited to see that go further. Aside from that, we don't really learn a whole lot from her. We don't really get a whole taste for her personality just yet. But again, her story with her mother seems very compelling. Then we have Debra Jo Rupp, who is not a witch, but they needed a green witch. And since they obviously can't get Rio, Kathryn Hahn's character, Agatha, goes over to her neighbor and brings her over. And she's just excited to be a part of this gal group. They're singing their whole Witch's Road song, which I'll get to the music in a minute. I love that aspect of it. But she's just very excited to be there. That being said, I've heard theories, I should say, not rumors, that she might be Rio in disguise, and there are a lot of clues to it, like the fact that we know that Rio ends up on the Witch's Road. How did she get there if she didn't go with them? Also, there's the fact that on that list, Patti Lupone wrote there was just a black heart. And earlier in the first episode, Aubrey Plaza's character, Rio, says that she does have a heart. It's black and it beats for Agatha. Also, Debra Jo Rupp's character in WandaVision, in the world, in the Westview Wanda created, was Mrs. Hart. So a lot of different clues that could add up to nothing. But even if they add up to nothing, I love seeing Debra Jo Rupp. I think she is kind of a breath of fresh air. And her character is just so fun and just wants to be part of the group, which is lovely. But yeah, kind of touching a little bit, they do have to sing this Witch's Road song to access the Witch's Road. And I think that tying music with witchcraft and like spells and all of that is so compelling and such an interesting way to portray magic in the MCU and make it a little bit distinct from the other power sets within the MCU is really well done. Music was a kind of a big standout in WandaVision. I don't know that that was the intention going into WandaVision, but this, they're very much putting music as the backbone, as kind of the heart of the show, which I think is a great job. I think they're doing a great job. I want to listen to that Witch's Road version that they sang here, but I can't seem to find it anywhere. So if anyone knows where I can kind of hear that, I would love to know how. But yeah, Jac Schaeffer, hats off to you. You are doing a great job expanding this corner of the MCU. I love that you are, you know, you clearly do your homework into these characters. You clearly have a way of telling stories that is so compelling, and I think she's doing a great job. If they ever make a Scarlet Witch movie, I would hope that Jac Schaeffer gets to write it, because she clearly understands how to pull off witches within the MCU. So I'm very excited to continue watching this show, to continue seeing this mystery unfold, and yeah, just going down the witch's road.